When your life blows up and you find yourself in the ocean with like pieces of the boat all around, look for a fucking life preserver or a raft. Okay. So I want to applaud you for doing what needed to be done when the you know what hit the fan. That same instinct is what is going to make you successful. The second thing that I want to tell you is once you get a hold of that life raft, you want to grab something else that floats, right? And get yourself out of that water. And so I am glad to hear that you're looking for a job. Yeah. And what I would recommend is I would recommend not pretending about the situation that you're in. There is no shame in going to a job interview and at the end of it saying, and I'm asking you for this job. And the reason why I'm asking you for this job is not only because I am going to be incredible at it and you're never going to regret it, but I actually need it. I'm in a really tight jam. I had a life crisis happen. I never thought at the age of 55 I'd be in this situation, and I need the work and I want the work, which means I'm going to show up here every single day and I am going to work the heck out of this job. I've never wanted a job more than I want a job right now. And you should tell your friends that this is what you're going through and that you need help and that you need a recommendation or you need a place to stay. And you should not do what I did, which was hide what was going on because I was so ashamed. And, I'm also going to tell you, it will take time. 5 years ago, I still had the liens on this house. 5 years ago, guys. And so it will take time for you to climb out of this, but you will climb out of this. When you're in a shitstorm and when the lights go out in your life and things feel really dark and really heavy, there has always been one thing that helps me get through those moments. And it's reminding myself that this moment, like every painful moment of my life, was temporary. It passed. And when you can keep telling yourself this moment it's going to pass and it's leading me somewhere, when you can trust in that, you create your own light in that dark tunnel. And it allows you to look up. And one of the things about learning something new, like how to make money online, is that it acts like a beacon for where you're freaking going.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the powerboat that gets you there right now.
I know.
Because you know what I mean? Because you need to find another freaking life jacket, which means you need to get a job. Which means you need to just keep going on these interviews. And there's no need, if you've gone on all these interviews and people are like, you're amazing. And then you don't get it. And you think it's because you're too old or you're too desperate. They say you're a consultant. Right. There's no shame in writing back and saying, I'm not sure if you filled the position, but I didn't mention that I actually need a job.
Right.
My pride got in the way. And so if you haven't filled that position, or maybe you, are looking for more people, I want to make sure I'm not looking to be a consultant. I've never wanted to find a great job more than ever than this moment. There's no shame in that. What's the worst they're going to say? Yeah, we filled the job.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I've been really even just struggling to even get interviews too. And it's just a funny thing, and it's like, I did have a really great.
What did you do before?
Well, I have I was sort of a rock star visual researcher with directors, back in the day. And I took an odyssey out of that when I had my kid and went to Europe, and I had a company doing that. And recently hooked up with my old team through B School. We're starting a Pinterest collective. So I'm reactivating this whole visual research space.
Great. Let me tell you what you could do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Project management.
I don't know, girl. I'm like the worst project manager.
Bullshit. You can't manage your own life. You can manage somebody else's project.
Maybe.
1,000%. 1,000%. Do not look for a job in what you used to do.
Okay.
Look for a job managing projects in any kind of company, because you just need structure and a place to go every day and a paycheck. That's like the rows on the boat rowing you ahead.
Yeah.
And you're scrappy enough, I can tell, that you'll get annoyed with that job. And then you'll start hustling even more than you are. And you'll giddy up in the other things. But you need the structure. You need to get out of the house. You need a simple paycheck. You need to do that routine for a couple months. I am telling you, it is the best job market in 4 years. I don't give a shit how old you are.
No, I love the hearing that. And I get so frustrated by that because I do. It's like you're
looking for the wrong kind of job. You're trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. I mean,
you have skills. Stop looking at industries. You have skills. You can manage things. The woman that I just hired, who's going to come on board as my executive assistant, like organize Mel, she was a graphic designer. She worked in a branding agency. She had a dog walking. She's never been an executive assistant. Why? Right. Because I just need somebody who can organize shit who's an adult that I trust is not going to steal from me. That's what I need. And who can boss me around.
Right. Yeah, I do. I understand it. I do think I do have the adult quality, and
of course,
I definitely I'm a pro. I mean, I honestly though, Mel, I would ruin your flights. I'm the worst. I'm not a project administrative.
Then don't take that kind of job. You're not hearing me. You have skills that you can market. Do not look for a visual organizer, needle in the haystack job. Forget that. Get your skills at the top of your resume. LinkedIn has an entire learning platform, and there is so much on there about marketing skills. That's what people are hiring right now. It's not about the industry.
Yeah, I do see that. I have 8 recruiters working for me that can't place me because it's I'm an email marketer. Everything is one skill kind of, parsed out. And
trust me, look for project management, account services, anything, honestly.
Okay.
That's just what you need. You need something. At this point, don't be picky. Just
I'm not picky.
a job.
I just feel I don't get any traction with it. It's weird. It's just weird. I'm not.
Okay. So let me tell you something else. You ready?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you don't like the advice, which means it's exactly what you need to do.
I don't know. I'm open to doing anything, but I just wish I was good at that. I've worked with project managers and I value them.
Well, then don't be a project manager. You're missing the point.
Okay.
If you're working with recruiters, they're not going to place you in a job that's general.
Right.
80% of jobs are not even marketed. They are filled by referral.
Right.
You need to be talking to your friends. You need to be looking at the job boards on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you need to be lowering your standards because you are in a lifeboat right now.
Right.
That's what you need to do.
Okay.
And as you lower your standards on the job front, and as you start rowing in a direction, because you now have a paycheck, you're able to get out of your ex-husband's apartment every day. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest about where you're at. And you have a rhythm to your week. That structure from that job is going to give you what you need to get going in a different direction.
Yeah.
You can't organize your thoughts because you're all over the place because you're in an emergency. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I want to tell you is you are capable of figuring this out. And you will get a job. And you will launch a new business. And you will make these things happen. And you will look back on this moment. And you will see exactly why this happened and how it helped you get somewhere awesome.
I believe that.
Excellent. Then
I totally believe it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks, Mel.
You're welcome. being tough because I want to see you pull yourself up out of this. I'm still in the mindset that I was in 2008 when Chris and I went bankrupt.
Which is, I need to get as
scarcity.
Yeah. Man, really?
Yes, that's the big insight
No
I've
way.
had during this pandemic. Yeah.
Shut up.
Shut up. We're going to talk about it.
No, I'm just saying shut up because that's crazy to hear you say that.
Well, yeah, because we shouldn't be talking. We should just be going. Well, you're recording all this, so you can put it any way you want.
Yeah, we could add it in here, but
no, honestly, so if you get into a situation where you nearly lose everything, and look, I know you've been on your sister's couch, you've been down and out, you've had to reinvent yourself. We could be the reinvention twins, the two of us.
We could be.
Yes, and the thing is, though, is that if you get in that moment where you can't pay for groceries, where you think your car is going to get repossessed, where you can't pay for your kid's town soccer league, that is low. When as a parent, you can't provide what you want to provide for your kids. You don't ever want to be in that situation again. And so when I started to claw my way out of that, Lewis, and I started making money and Chris started getting his restaurant business back on the rails, I mean, we were still $800,000 in debt. It was 3 years worth of trying to make the ends meet. And when I gave that TEDx talk in 2011, that was 3 years after I discovered the 5-second rule. I had a full-time job with benefits, and we were still massively in debt. There were still liens on the house. And after that TEDx talk, which is what launched the speaking business, as people started to book me and I started making money, I was like a squirrel with a freaking nut, man. A dollar came in, I'm like, put it away, put it away, put it away, put it away, put it away. And every time a speech came, you know what everybody said as I started to explode on the speaking circuit is, oh, speakers get hot. You're going to be the hot speaker in, 2017, and then take everything you can get. And I just
then they're
said
on
yes.
to the next speaker. Yeah.
And so I figured I was just a fad. And so I said yes to everything. And I have become addicted to being busy. And it is driven, when I'm present, from making an impact. But if I'm honest, it is mostly driven from that mentality from 2008, the fear that this could all disappear.
Wow. We both went through our own, I guess, identity shift and dream death or ego death in 2008 with me from football and you with your career and everything. To give people context, because I'm just going to roll with this from what you just shared. Mel Robbins has been a friend of mine for years. You've come and spoke at Summit of Greatness. You've been on the show a few times before, and you've exploded in the last 4 years, really, with everything you've been talking about, from speaking to the 5-second rule to the Mel Robbins show, which was a big hit. But then, in the middle of pandemic, that dream just ended. And we're talking about, a big revelation for you, which is scarcity. And this is something we teach all the time, to be in abundance and don't have a scarce mindset. But you're saying that you feel like you've been in scarcity still for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
In some way, obviously abundance of I can do everything, but in some way you felt.
Yeah, there have been modes where I've said yes to things, Lewis, because I've been afraid that all of my good fortune would disappear. And if I had to take a look at one of the biggest lessons from the pandemic that COVID-19 created, I call it the Great Pause, where all of us were forced to take a gigantic pause from our everyday life. And I need to qualify what I'm about to say by also saying that we have not lost a family member. We have not had we don't have anybody. My dad is retired, so we don't have an essential worker at a hospital or a grocery store. So I am speaking about the impact of COVID-19 without having lost a loved one. And so the Great Pause that basically had my talk show end abruptly. We got 5 minutes notice. We're told to evacuate CBS Broadcast Center. And all of a sudden, It was over. 139 people, no goodbyes.
Oh my goodness.
175 shows, no thank yous. We finished taping. I walked into the control room. My executive producer, Mindy Borman, turned to me and said they found COVID in the building. She started tearing up. Everybody, this has been remarkable. It's a wrap. We are the last show in the building. CBS let us finish taping. They're sealing off the building. I literally ran up
in the middle of a show.
Yes,
No.
This was March 11th, and we had already stopped down audiences, and so I ran upstairs to the apartment in CBS, which was like our green room. I grabbed everything that was possibly not nailed down. Don't tell Sony I took a bunch of the blazers, and I'm still a farm girl from the Midwest at heart. Grab them, go. Who's going to know that they're missing? And so and that was it. I mean, it was so awful because it felt like the biggest dream of my life, which was to host a daytime syndicated talk show and give advice to people 5 days a week on television who had no access to therapy, didn't have the time for personal development, make it entertaining, accessible. My whole dream, boom, in 5 minutes flat, done, no completion, disruption. That was it. And then 2 days later, Houghton Mifflin, which was my publisher for my next book, started laying people off, and they called me and said, we need to cancel the book contract.
No, I did not.
Yeah, they did. And then, well, in their defense, Lewis, I was a year late in delivering.
Okay, yeah. So if you would have done it on time, yeah, it'd have been out.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
You had a talk show to do.
Dyslexia strikes again.
Exactly.
And then it started to be like, this speech is canceled, and this speech is canceled, and this speech is canceled. And basically, once Microsoft announced that there were no events happening until June 2021, the speaking business, at least the corporate speaking business, is basically on hold for in-person events for over a year. And in a matter of a week, I saw my entire runway shut down. And what's so interesting is you and I have both, in 2008, like so many of your listeners, the first recession just rocked my life to rock bottom. And when rock bottom hits, you don't have to hit with a thud. Oftentimes when you hit bottom, you bounce. And that's where I think the power is, that when the world feels upside down, you always have the power to make it right. When one chapter ends, you always have the power to write a new one. When, you feel like nobody loves you, you have the power to learn how to love yourself. And if there's one thing that COVID-19 has done, regardless of whatever devastation it has caused in your life, is it has forced us all to experience the great pause. And I read that in a Medium article, and I loved that idea of a pause, because I think in 2020, our lives have gotten so fast and so digital. And when you are forced to pause and get present and to slow down, you are reminded of what's actually important. And what's important is your health. What's important is your family and your friends. What's important is whether or not you are taking care of yourself and thinking positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. The world gave us a gigantic experiment where we got to practice and get to continue to practice the most important skill on the planet, which is emotional resilience, the ability to face hard and actually be okay, the ability to face the uncertain and redirect your attention on things that you know that are certain. And so I am so grateful that we had this time, because when I think about my family, so we've got a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 15-year-old, we will never get these 10 weeks back again. It was a gift. As much as our two daughters who are in college were complete when they got home, it was a gift.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, for that generation, by the way, for them to learn, the generation where everybody gets a trophy, that the things that you love can be taken away like that. that there are things in life that are way more important than your prom or rush
Or graduation
or graduation. Not to say that you don't deserve to mourn those things, but the perspective check that you got from COVID-19, and, it really hit home because one of our daughters has a very close friend in college whose dad died, who's my age. And no prior conditions, nothing. And I think when change hits and it's personal, that's when the perspective shift comes. And so between COVID-19 and the fight for social justice that we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter movement and all of the protesting going on, it's been a really remarkable moment of time if you pause for a minute and you reflect on the opportunity of this moment.
What is the opportunity?
The opportunity is to unlock the power that's inside you to create a better future for yourself, for your family, for your body, for your mind, for your spirit, for this country, for this world, for your community.
Yeah. I always talk about, since I experience many breakdowns, whether it be a physical breakdown or relationship breakdown or family breakdowns, I feel like in order for us to really see clearly, we need to break down in a big way. It's hard to make big changes when things are good or when they're so-so. It's even when it's like, it's not good, it's hard to make changes. It needs to be devastatingly challenging for a lot of us. Some of us maybe can make changes all the time, but for most people, there needs to be some devastation or near devastation, either personally or close to you, to say, oh, let me reevaluate, let me pause, like you talked about, and start creating a better future for myself. Why do you think that is in human beings, that, if things are going bad, we won't change? If they're going good, we won't change, but it's almost like we need a massive breakdown, near-death experience, divorce, COVID, for us to see clearly to start changing?
Well, there's a really simple answer: patterns. So the thing about all human beings is that we are pattern learning machines. And if you feel stuck or broken, I guarantee you, while you feel that way, you're not. You have a pattern of behavior or a pattern of thinking that is broken. And we need to be disrupted because we love our patterns. And even people that I know, like
even when we're in pain, we love the pain.
Pain's familiar for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, like you may be listening to Lewis and I talking, and you grew up in a super chaotic household. Maybe your parents argued all the time. Maybe your dad or mom were in and out. Maybe there was a lot of fighting. Maybe there was actual abuse. I don't know what was going on, but it was chaotic as hell. And so as an adult, you have vowed to yourself, you are not going to repeat that pattern. But what ends up happening is, because as a little kid, you absorbed the pattern of chaos in your nervous system, unless you go about the intentional work of breaking the pattern of chaos, you will create it in your own life because it's what's familiar. You won't understand. Why do I keep dating these assholes? Why do I go to these bosses that treat me like crap? Because you don't know what it feels like to be in a relationship with either a boss or a romantic partner or a roommate that is consistent, because for the first 18 years of your life, you lived in a state called, when's the next shoe going to drop?
Right.
And so wherever it is in your life that something is broken, there is a pattern that you don't see yet that is making you continue to stay in a broken situation. And so one of the things that you just asked, which is, why is a perspective change or losing a job or something like that that's so disruptive? Because those sorts of things, COVID-19 breaks every pattern.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
Yes. Black Lives Matter breaks patterns of thinking that you weren't even aware that you had about privilege or being anti-racist, or what your Black colleagues and friends and relatives deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so having a breakdown is one of the biggest things on the planet, because what you get is you get a break from your own bullshit, and you can look objectively at where you are, and for the first time look ahead and say, well, what do I want to go create? And 9 times out of 10, if you're discouraged right now, if you've got financial devastation, if you're facing something, that is making this moment in time as hard for you as life was for Lewis and I in 2008 during the last recession, I beg you, ask yourself honestly if what you had is actually what you wanted. The thing that you just lost, that job that you bitched about all the time,
a relationship that was bad to you. Yeah.
Yes. Or the friends you can't hang out with because it's convenient and you're in quarantine. Like, actually ask yourself if this is what you wanted, or were you just used to it? Being used to something, Lewis, I think is the biggest reason why people don't change. I asked my mother, I love my mother. I love my parents. They've been married 51 years, which is a feat because my mom was a teen mom. But I asked her once if she'd go to a personal development seminar with me.
What'd you say?
Are you kidding me? Why would I want to change at my age?
Oh, wow.
I might discover I hate my life.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave that right there.
Right. I mean,
I think being used to what you have. I mean, I even our son is, so I'm here in Vermont at my mother-in-law's place, and our son is going to go to high school in Vermont. And so we're going to kind of split our time back and forth between my mother-in-law's place and our place in Boston, because God knows what business is going to be like. And, why would you need an office after COVID-19? Right. Another amazing thing to realize, even that change, I notice my own agitation, my own anxiety coming up. Will I make friends? Will I like a slower lifestyle? What happens if Chris likes it up here and I hate it up here? My own mind, because it's not something I'm used to yet, is making up stories to cling to the old way of life. This is a moment in time, everyone, please. This is the greatest gift. The greatest gift is this moment of pause where you get in touch with what you actually want. And if you don't have the skills, for crying out loud, look around and take an online course, because if you need skills to prepare yourself for the thing that you want, get them right now. When life suddenly changes and you feel like you have lost control and you start to feel stuck and powerless, how do you take control when you don't know where your life or the world or this moment is going? And here's the number one thing I want you to know. You don't need to know where this moment or where the world is going. You just need to know where you are going next. And one of the things that has happened, certainly in the pandemic, but it always happens when there's any kind of reckoning in your life, is that when you have something suddenly happen and your life is fundamentally changed, whether it's a death, or somebody says, I don't love you anymore, or you're fired, or you find yourself with a scary health diagnosis, there is a line in the sand. There is a life before that happened, and then a life after that moment happened. And that line in the sand, that reckoning that happens, and it happens for all of us, whether it's happening for you right now, or it has happened in the past, I'm telling you, there is a gift inside of this, even the darkest moments, because every single sudden change in your life that makes you feel like you've lost control and you no longer know where you're going, it's like hitting the giant pause button. And if you lean into the moment, there is a chance for tremendous wisdom and growth. There are things that you can do right now in order to take control of where you're going, of what you're thinking about. And you can start to take this moment of change and you can use it to be able to take and make an intentional pivot in the direction that is meant for you next. And one of the things I want to say about this moment is, look, if you're losing loved ones, you are terrified, this has made you lose your job, you feel like you're in that moment where everything, you're falling off a cliff, you're trying to pack a parachute, you're grieving. And so you got to give yourself space to grieve the losses that you're feeling. And when you get a little bit of distance from the grieving and the waves of grief and fear that you're feeling start to space out. They don't ever leave you, but over time, those waves of holy cow, and I don't want this, and I can't handle this, and why is this happening to me? Time will start to lessen those waves. You will gather your feet underneath you again, and you will absolutely be stronger and be a better version of yourself based on this incredible challenge that you're facing. And I can say that even though you may be facing a tough time, because if you think about your life, you've faced extraordinary challenges, and there hasn't been a single one that hasn't made you a better and stronger version of yourself. And this moment will be no different. So I want you to understand that when you get out of the cycle of grief, this is an enormous reckoning, an enormous opportunity for you to hit the pause button and for you to start to ask yourself the question, what do I want my life to look like? Because I think too many of us are sitting here going, I can't wait for my life to get back to normal. I can't wait for this to end. I can't wait to things to go back to normal. And in any moment of reckoning, what happens is there's actually parts of your old life that you don't want to go back to. And there is a tremendous amount that you're learning in this moment that you need to pause and take in and say, okay, based on what I've just learned, based on my old life, when I look ahead to my new life, what is it that I want my new life to look like? This next chapter, I can turn to a blank page, I can take all this wisdom, all this resilience, all this strength, and I can write something new. That's what I want you to know. You don't need to know where the world or where everything is headed. You just need to know where you're going to head next. So, quick video for anyone that's going through some really confronting stuff in their personal life. That's me right now. Don't really feel ready to discuss any of the details, but it is a very challenging moment right now for me. And the waves of emotion, all of them, are coming and going right now in my life. And I want to share something that I am finding helpful as I move through this really tough moment in time. I remind myself that these feelings are temporary, number one, and that helps me find strength in knowing that I'm going to learn something in this moment. I'm going to ride through this pain, and I'm going to come out stronger, and I won't always feel like that, like I do right now. The second thing is I try not to attach myself to the waves that are coming of sadness and anger and fear and frustration and just all of it. And by that, I mean I let the wave of emotion come into my body. I try not to hold on to it, grip it, attach it. I feel what I need to feel, and I breathe it out. That's number two. And number three, a lot of journaling. A lot of journaling. Just pouring out everything I'm feeling as a way to excavate it responsibly. Anyway, I wanted to make this video because I know you're probably going through something. I know you're probably experiencing waves of emotion, frustration, sadness, anger, joy, whatever it may be. You're human. This is a human experience to feel emotional waves. And so remind yourself, whether it's a high or a low, it's temporary. You can get through this. Breathe through the wave. Don't attach yourself to it and let it knock you over. And three, just dump everything you're feeling out into a journal instead of at other people. And that will help you process the emotions you need to process because you don't want to shove them down. It will help you get clear about where you want to go next and what you're meant to learn in this moment. And it will help you move through it with grace, with strength, with resilience. I hope those three things help you the way that they're helping me.
So my question for you, and I know I'm asking this on behalf of everyone else listening, is what do we do when we're in the face of so much uncertainty?
Well, when you are in the face of so much uncertainty, which we all are right now, what you have to do is you have to win the battle that you can win, which is the battle with your own mind. You see, you can't control what governments are going to do. You can't control the price of oil. You can't control what COVID-19 is going to do. You can't control what's going to happen a month from now, 2 months from now. You can only control what you're doing right here, right now. And so if you have the propensity to get triggered by the unknown, which most human beings do, you have to fight to focus on the stuff you do know. So right now in this moment, you know what I know? I know that if you're watching this conversation, you're safe. I know that you have access to the internet. I know that you're still alive. And so safety and health is the number one thing that if you have that covered, you can focus on this moment and bringing your mind back to this moment and saying, I may not know what's going to happen. I may not like how people are handling it, but I do know that I am safe right now and that I will be able to face whatever is coming. When you start to get into the pattern and the habit of spinning thoughts about what's coming, you will lose the battle with your mind. Your health will tank, your mood will tank, your relationships will tank, your outlook will tank. It all begins with making a decision that you are not going to allow that shit in your mind. That is the one thing that you can control. And what's happening for so many people right now is that our moods and our decisions and our thought patterns actually begin in our bodies. So our nervous systems are hardwired to trigger certain thinking patterns. And it dates back to patterns that you learned when you were a kid. So if uncertainty for you as a kid meant, uh-oh, is dad coming home and drunk? And do I need to be on edge? And I get hyper vigilant so that I don't get in the crosshairs? Or maybe uncertainty was, uh-oh, mom seems a little critical. Is she disappointed? Is she upset? Am I going to get in trouble? And so you developed this propensity to start to worry about what's coming. The second, as an adult, you get into a situation where you start to feel like you don't know what's coming, before your mind even realizes it, your nervous system recognizes it because your mind may have forgotten the pattern, but your body sure remembers it. And boom, this kind of habitual worrying can take over like that. So you're not only dealing with the triggers that are in the present moment, you're dealing with past patterns of thinking, whether it's worry or anxiety, or it's perfectionism or procrastination or hypervigilance or assuming something bad is going to happen, whatever it may be, that is getting triggered for people at a profound level. And so what I want to do today with you is I want to give you some simple tools so that you can create some psychological distance, just a micro moment between the thing that triggers you. Let's create a little moment, a pause, if you will, where you can have self-awareness and where you can insert a moment of control and then hand you the tools to redirect your mind to something positive. Because here's what I know. This isn't going to last forever. I know that oil prices may momentarily tank, but when we flatten the curve, we will go back to life and people will need oil. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that really suffer because they lose their jobs or they lose their homes or they are struggling to find the basic supplies. One good thing about what's happening right now is this is not happening just to you. This is a global crisis and there are a tremendous number of resources out there. So you can focus on all the shit that you can't control, or you can focus on this moment and the fact that right now you're healthy and okay. And then you can develop a mantra from this moment to remind yourself to calm your ass down and focus on the fact that if something bad happens, you will face it then.
I love that response. I love that. What is this tool? I'm curious to know now. What is this tool that you're going to teach us? Can we get into that?
Yes. So the first thing that I want everybody to do is you've got to be able to see or name the thing if you want to tame it. So if you just take out a piece of paper and you write down everything on a simple piece of paper or in a notebook that triggers you to worry, to feel anxious, to be uncertain, that's number one, because part of what we need to teach you to do is you can see this stuff coming. If you don't label all the things that trigger you, then what's going to happen is your nervous system gets triggered, which then takes you into a worry and an anxiety, a fight or flight adrenaline response that hijacks your mind. And before you know it, your thoughts are scrambling, and it's hard to bring yourself down once your thoughts go haywire. So I want you to write down all the things. For me, my biggest moments of anxiety are first thing in the morning. And I have tremendous experience with this personally. So I struggled with anxiety for 25 years. I was medicated for it. The medication saved my life. I had such severe postpartum depression when our first daughter was born, who's now 21, that I couldn't be left alone with her. That's how scary it was. So my expertise comes not from studying this, it's from living this and having to figure out how to save my own ass from my own mind. And about 6 years ago, I started using something I called the 5-second rule to interrupt my thoughts that were negative, that would send me spiraling, and drag my mind to consciousness, to the prefrontal cortex in 5 seconds flat. And I trained myself to start to rewire my own patterns of nervous system gets triggered, my mind goes haywire. I interrupt it using what I call the 5-second rule. I'm going to teach it to you in a second. I draw my focus back to my prefrontal cortex, which gives me immediate control of what I'm thinking. And boom, I drop in what I call an anchor thought to anchor myself down. So the first step of this is I want you to write down everything that triggers you. For me, waking up to a new day where there's a lot of uncertainty or something's going on, facing all of that is where my anxiety comes. And, I hit rock bottom in my life 11 years ago. My husband was in the restaurant business. It was going under. We were $800,000 in debt, about to lose the house. I was drinking way too much because numbing your problems is the easiest way to deal with them, but it backfires. Go ahead.
So Mel, this situation you're in, I mean, this situation the world is in, you've been here. Because I read your bio when your husband was starting that pizza restaurant and you guys were $800,000 in the hole, almost losing your money, almost losing all your savings.
No money. I mean, I couldn't pay for groceries. The bankruptcy letters were coming. The car was about to be repossessed. We had 3 kids. I was unemployed. It was so bad. I could not get my ass out of bed. I was 41 years old. And I never thought that my life would turn out like this. Just like, look, you didn't choose to be in this situation with this pandemic, but you can choose how you build a response to it. And that's where I need you to focus all of your energy, all of your thoughts, that you didn't choose this anxiety crock pot we're all cooking in, but we can choose how we insulate ourselves from the uncertainty and we build emotional resilience and we ground our minds. And so I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I would hit that snooze button.
How long ago was this, Mel?
11 years. Wow. So I couldn't get out of bed. The alarm would ring. I'd hit the snooze button 4 or 5 times. My mind would be full of all of the problems, all of the uncertainty. How the fuck am I going to get out of this? I'm the worst mother. The kids have missed the bus. I hate my husband. I'm a failure. All of it. It was like the weighted blanket psychologically keeping me in bed. And so my life changed, and you can change your life with one decision. In fact, I think we're all just one decision away from a totally different life. And if you make the decision today, after watching this and listening to this, to change how you think, your whole life will change. And so what happened for me is one night I was watching TV and I was giving myself this little pep talk, like, all right, I got to pull it together. I got to stop drinking. I got to find a job. I got to stop screaming at my husband. I got to start talking to my friends. I got to do something. I got to change. And I see this rocket ship launch across the television screen. And it gave me this crazy idea that maybe if I launched myself out of bed, if I moved fast enough, maybe I'd move fast enough and I'd be gone before the anxiety and depression hit. Maybe there was a window of time where you could move before the anxiety and depression, boom, takes you down. Now, look, I had 4 Manhattans that night, so I was pretty plowed because it sounds like a stupid idea. You know what I'm saying? But for whatever reason, I'll never forget it. It was a Tuesday morning in February outside of Boston, Massachusetts. That alarm went off. And here's the thing I want everybody to understand. Your whole life comes down to micro changes. And these changes happen in a 5-second window. There's a 5-second window between feeling the terror of this moment and finding courage, or feeling the terror of this moment and having a panic attack. There's a 5-second window between feeling motivated to go for a walk or to sit down and focus. And 5 seconds later, you've talked yourself out of it. Everything happens in this 5-second window, and that's where the power is. So that morning, Tuesday in February, 11 years ago, the alarm goes off. Now, I immediately remembered I should get out of bed. Just like you know exactly what you should be doing, or the small things that will make your day a little bit better. I knew it, but then this 5-second moment of hesitation opens up. And I started thinking about what I needed to do instead of doing it. And that's where all of the emotion and all the anxiety and all the depression, it comes right into this 5-second moment of hesitation. I could feel myself reaching for the snooze button because it was a habit. I did it every single morning as avoidance and denial and numbing. But then I did something that I'd never done in my life. I started counting backwards, just like the space programs do when they launch a rocket. Works in any language, only works if you count backwards, does not work if you count up. Started counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just like a rocket launch. And boom, I stood up. It was this craziest thing. And that was that. The next morning I used it again. The next morning I used it again. By the third morning, I thought this is very weird, but I was so desperate. I said, instead of getting resigned and cynical, why don't you just test this thing? Anytime you're in a moment, Mel, where you don't feel like doing something, or you're emotionally triggered, or procrastination's kicking in, or fear or anxiety, just count backwards. Let's see what happens. I'll be damned. Counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It made me pick up the phone and start looking for a job. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I put the booze over here and walked in that direction. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I settle my nervous system. Instead of screaming at my husband, Chris, I'm able to talk to him calmly. Using this tool, my whole life changed. Now, I never intended to tell anybody because it sounds stupid and I didn't know why it worked. No idea. And that all changed in 2011 when I was asked to give that TEDx talk. Now, by this point, I had gotten a job. Chris's restaurants were turning around because he was using the 5-second rule to make the courageous decisions that he had been avoiding. Everything was great. And somebody asked me to give a talk about finding a new job, about careers, about goals. That was the TEDx talk. I used the 5-second rule for 3 years to change my own life. I used it in secret. I didn't talk about it. It was a little self-coaching tool that was just incredible. It gives you instant motivation, instant courage, instant 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 push that you need to do the things that will change your life. So I get asked to give a TEDx talk about how you change your career. It was not about the 5-second rule. That was the first speech I'd ever given in my life. If you want to know what it looks like to have a 21-minute long panic attack, watch my TED Talk. If you look closely.
For people who are going to be looking for this TED Talk, is this the one called How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over?
Yes.
Amazing.
And I
22 million
literally,
views. Amazing.
Yes, you can watch it. I literally have a bright red rash on my neck as I'm talking. All the anxiety coming. I forgot how to end the thing. I casually mentioned the 5-second rule at the end because I forgot what I was supposed to talk about. A year goes by, nothing changes in my life, and all of a sudden somebody reaches out on Facebook and asked me to speak, and they said that they had seen the speech in San Francisco. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, it's on Facebook. I'm like, it's on Facebook. They had put it on Facebook. It had like 1 million views. So I started being asked to speak about the 5-second rule, and it became this organic phenomenon. And I spoke for free about it for a couple years, and then I realized everybody at these events but me was getting paid, and I'm a moron. And about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now, I started speaking professionally, and I became the most booked female speaker in the world.
What? And that congratulations. That is amazing.
Thank you. 111 speeches in 2018. And then we focused on launching a talk show. But so the thing about the 5-second rule is it's not mine. It's for the world. And what I'm really excited and why I'm excited to come back to teaching it to you and how you use it with identifying triggers and with anchor thoughts is it's way more than a motivational tool. It is a weapon that you can use against programming in your mind that you want to upgrade. And here's how you're going to use it. Because it's being used by healthcare practitioners in psychiatric practices. It's being used in inpatient settings in psychiatric hospitals. It is being used by pediatricians to help kids with anxiety. It's being used by veterans organizations to help people with PTSD. It is a fundamental science-backed tool that is classified as a starting ritual in habit research. A starting ritual is something you can use to trick your own mind. See, all of the negative shit that you do, whether it's procrastinating or worrying or anxiety, it's all stored right here in this part of your brain. This part of your brain automates all your behavior. Any negative pattern that you feel like you don't want anymore in your life, we can interrupt that pattern and we can replace it with a new pattern. But first you got to learn to interrupt the pattern. And so what happens when you use the 5-second rule is counting backwards does something really powerful. When you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it requires focus when you first start using it, which is this puppy right here, the prefrontal cortex. When you count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the counting draws your focus to your prefrontal cortex and awakens it. So by the time you get to 1, the part of the brain that is responsible for courage, for learning new behavior, for strategic decision-making, and for being intentional and conscious has just woken up. The act of counting backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is an intentional act that interrupts a pattern of worrying or a pattern of negative self-talk or a pattern of anxiety that's automated. The act of counting is the first thing you choose to do to say, screw you, I'm not going to listen to that. By the time you get to 1, your mind is now primed to receive different information because it's ready to focus on something. So when you identify all the triggers that trigger you to feel anxious or worry or out of control right now, what you're now going to do is we're going to come up with a pattern that we want to replace. Because if your coping mechanism for anxiety in the morning is to lie in bed and to feel anxious as hell and to start getting depressed and then to sleep till noon, we want to replace that with getting up and getting out of bed and getting outside. And this change is going to happen in a 5-second window. So we identify the trigger. I feel depressed. I stay in bed. I oversleep. I don't get up. Then I wake up and feel horrible. Okay, that's the trigger, the morning, the alarm goes off. Great. We're going to use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're going to replace it with a different behavior that you've already planned. I'm getting up. It doesn't matter how I feel. I'm getting up. It might be that your coping mechanism is to hit the bong or to drink too much at night because that's the only way you can get your mind to quiet down, right? Because we all are feeling something right now called moral fatigue. Have you heard this term before? Moral fatigue, really important to understand. If you feel like you're more exhausted than ever and you don't understand why because you're just sitting on your ass all day, let me tell you why you're exhausted right now, like exhausted in your bones, and why at the end of the day, you just want to numb out. So here's why. A month or 2 months ago, depending upon where you live in the world, going to the store and buying milk was a very automated proposition. You got to the store, walked in, you got your milk, you left. Now it requires complex processing. It requires your prefrontal cortex to fire up and go, okay, wait, do I have a mask? Do I have supplies? Is the store going to be open? Is there going to be a line? As you're driving along or riding your bike or walking, you see all these people with their masks on and it feels dystopian and weird and people are frowning and it feels scary. And then you go into the store and you're thinking, should I touch this? Should I not touch this? Should I pull out my money? Is there going to be milk? Did somebody touch the milk thing? Should I decontaminate? Does a virus live on plastic? Is it cold? Is it not cold? Should I say hi to this person? Am I standing too close to the cash register? Why can't I come up to the thing? When is this going to end? So by the time you get home, you've basically taken a standardized test. Your mind is like, oh, God. So if you're having a hard time focusing right now, it's because of what they call moral fatigue. Your mind is having to make big moral calls about every small aspect of life right now. It is gassing you. Your brain is so out of fuel. Your mind is so tired. So your butt may be in the same chair all day long. Your mind has just run 4 marathons. It's exhausted. So if you notice that you're making unhealthy choices or that you worry the most at night, that's a trigger. So the sun going down might be a trigger. It's a huge trigger for a lot of people. You want to know why? The reason why the sun going down is a huge trigger for a lot of people is that's when they're typically, if you grew up in a house with a lot of conflict, the fighting happened at night. So parents coming home from work puts you in a state, whether you realize it or not, of feeling on edge, that something's coming. And so it can be very hard for people that grew up in households with a lot of trauma and conflict to relax at night, which is why it's easy to reach for the booze or the weed or the whatever to zone out. And so instead, you could go to Mind Valley and do one of the yoga classes. You could make it a practice that you're going to watch a whole series of documentaries instead, that you're going to have a choice in place because you know the trigger's coming. Now, when it comes to worry, what you need to do is, again, this comes to one of the things that I've been doing is when I notice that my mind starts to go too far in the future, because lately this is what I've been worried about. And this is a very, this is a luxurious worry. But the thing that I've been thinking a lot about is, oh my God, what happens if our 21-year-old and our 19-year-old can't go back to college this fall? That is going to be a nightmare for me because they're going to be here in the house and I'm going to be, but I think about also, when am I going to get back on the speaking circuit? When am I going to be able to be out with people at events? When are we going to be able to get back to things? When I start to go there and I start to feel a level of spinning, I catch myself because it's not going to serve me to worry. That's what everybody needs to understand. Your worrying is not helping you. It's hurting you. And so when I notice my own mind start to go to that place, I use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's like going, giving your brain a little slap. I awaken this. And then at my desk, I'm not sitting at my desk because we went to my mother-in-law's place in Vermont, but I have a photo of Lake Michigan. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan. And the state park there is on Lake Michigan, one of the Great Lakes here in the United States. And it's a beautiful freshwater lake with sand dunes and seagrass, just beautiful. And so I have a photo of it. And the reason why I have a photo of it is because it is a visual anchor that reminds me that better days are coming. It's a visual anchor that reminds me that when all of this is over and we flatten the curve together, and I emerge back into public life, the first place I'm going to go is to see my folks. And I'm going to walk out onto that beach. And so everybody should think about what is the one thing you want to do when this is over that you can't do right now?
You know, I want to travel. I want to get on stage again. I want to speak again. I've had so many, just like you. I was supposed to speak at South by Southwest and so many amazing events. All of that got dashed.
So pick one. I want everybody to pick one. So you pick. Mm-hmm. Okay, so South by Southwest. So what I want you to do is I want you to find an image of a particular stage, because I know there's millions of them there, that you really see yourself, or the sea of people, or the big thing. But the vision that really represents that moment when you are out in public with that many people able to share all of these amazing ideas and talk about this incredible community that you've built. And what you'll notice is that our minds are like boats. And if a boat isn't anchored, it will go with a current and drift away. And the current right now everywhere is extraordinarily negative. Nobody needs to turn on the news. You don't. I can tell you what's happening. People are dying. You're supposed to stay in your house. And we're working on finding a a test and a vaccine. That's it.
Right.
Other than that, there's nothing else new going on. That's it. Believe me, when the stay-at-home orders are lifted, everybody will text you. You don't have to have the news on. But the current right now is super duper negative. And so it's easy to have your mind drift. So you need things to anchor you. A photo of the thing you're going to do, like your photo of South by Southwest and my photo of the shores of Lake Michigan, that is what they call an environmental trigger. That positive environmental trigger anchors your mind in the positive thought that this is going to pass. This is temporary. I'm going to get through this. And when I do, I'm going to go do this thing that I care about. That brings you back into being able to be in the moment and remind yourself, I'm okay. And when something happens that I need to worry about, that's when I'll worry about it. But right now I'm okay. And this is temporary. And that, by simply redirecting your mind all day long, you will train your brain, no joke, to start to spot the positive, optimistic things, even in this moment.
Wow. Wow. So there was the list. There's the 5-second rule. And then there's that trigger, that positive trigger. How do we put all three of these tools together?
Excellent question. So number one, you're going to make a list of everything that triggers you. It could be the time of day. It could be a thought. It could be a certain news headline. It could be a certain thought, worried that maybe your mom or your dad is going to get this, or somebody that you love. Could be a thought. A lot of people I've noticed have a lot of thoughts right now about their own health. Mm-hmm. And so that's that. Whatever the trigger is that causes you to start to worry, write them all down. So now you know they're coming. Whenever one of them hits your brain, you're drifting down the negative current. Use the 5-second rule, count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to anchor yourself back down. Now, on the list of triggers that you have, what you're going to do is you're going to write down either an alternative thought. Hey, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Right now I'm safe. If I have to worry about, I'll worry about it when it happens. Saying it's not going to happen is not a great reframe, because most people don't believe that. They're worried it's going to happen. So you're going to write down your triggers.
Yeah, give me an example with you. Okay, so for example, for me, a worrying thought is, I don't know when my kid's school is going to open again, right?
Okay.
And you're wondering the same thing. When are your kids going to be allowed to go back to college? So that would be one of the things that's worrying us. What would be the positive vision to that?
Okay. So the way that I've handled that, and again, you got to figure out what triggers you and what's going to ground you back into the present, is I don't need to know right now. At some point it's going to reopen and they'll go back then. What I've done is I've said in my mind, they're going back in January. And that means that since there's so much uncertainty, you can hack certainty 2 ways. One is creating a daily routine that gives you certainty right now, because you can count on your routine being predictable, and predictability gives you emotional safety. 2, you can create your own milestones based on what you know from the World Health Organization and based on your own critical thinking. Me personally, I don't think there's any coming out of this where I live until mid-July, maybe. And I don't think there's any way, given that my daughters go to big universities, that they will be ready this fall. So my mind goes, I'm not even thinking about it, because I think it's January 1.
Right.
And if it happens sooner, fantastic. Now, what I say to my kids is this. I say, look, your whole life changed dramatically in the last 6 weeks. And school doesn't reopen for another 3 or 4 months. The smartest people on the planet are working on this problem. And so if your life can change for the negative in 6 weeks, it could also change in the positive in the next 6 weeks. We just don't know. But just feel good knowing the smartest people in the world are all working on the same problem. And that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that's really true. And that gives me so much hope. Just before you, I was speaking to Stephen Kotler, the famous writer and futurist, and he said, never before in the history of science and humanity have we had this many of the world's talent working together to solve one singular problem.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Okay, now, so we have the list. Yep. We have that future vision, whether it's speaking on a particular stage or our kids going back to school. How do we apply the 5-second rule?
So when you feel yourself getting triggered, so think about when you get triggered, you typically feel it in your body first. Is it the pit in your stomach? Is it the heart racing? Is it the hair on end? What is it? Start to identify that, the thoughts that swirl. The second you feel that coming on, we're interrupting that response. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then drop in whatever thought you're replacing the worry with. My kids are going to go back in January. I don't need to worry about this.
Right. I like that. It's so simple, yet so effective.
Well, the reason why is because you're planning this ahead of time. You see what triggers you coming. And then you have a plan to replace it before it escalates and hijacks your ability to think. Because the more stressed out you get from worrying, cortisol floods your mind, makes it really, really difficult to engage your prefrontal cortex, makes it very difficult to focus on anything else. So we want to see it coming, use the 5-second rule to interrupt the automated nature of it and engage your prefrontal cortex before cortisol takes over. And because you have a go-to thought, you'll be able to switch it up immediately. Having the go-to thought is critical. Look, I heard from a COVID-19 ICU nurse who's using this same exact method all day long to keep herself from succumbing to terror and emotional overwhelm. And what triggers her, they have to wear like double and triple layers right now in the ICU COVID units. And so it's super hot and really suffocating because you're so bundled up and nobody can really see your face. And so when she walks into a patient's room and they shut the door behind her, she gets a surge. I don't know if I can handle this. She has an immediate trigger that I got to run. This is too much. I feel like I'm suffocating. What if I bring this back to my family? She's using 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 all day long to close the window on the terror, take a deep breath, and move forward toward the checklist. And that's how she's getting through her day. And it's working because she has a plan knowing it's coming. See, most of us hate our anxiety and our worry and our fears so much that when we feel it coming up, we're like, oh shit, here it is. Oh, I don't want to feel it. And then we get all worked up because we're feeling anxious again, which only makes it worse. So this is a simple 3-step plan. List of triggers, 5-second rule, and a list of things you're going to think of instead. And now you're equipped to have the emotional resilience and the mental flexibility to switch gears so you can take control.
Amazing.
Let's get into this topic, okay? So I am in Salt Lake City and I'm about to give a speech. And as I landed here in Salt Lake City, my phone, when it came back online, started to blow up. And it was text messages from our daughter, who is a senior in college. Her name is Kendall. And she is a music student, and she aspires to be a singer-songwriter. And that piece of information is important because it relates to the heartbreak, the confusion, and the entanglement issues she is going through. So what is the issue? The issue is she was really interested in somebody in her program. And they were collaborating as musicians. They were hooking up. They had a really fun relationship. They really cared about each other. And as these things do, it kind of fizzled out. And recently, there has been a new friend that has come into her life that's also a musician that has been extremely helpful in collaboration. And Ken's all excited. And in fact, a week ago, she called me and said, "You're never going to believe this. I met the coolest woman. She wants to do sessions together. She wants to work on music together. I feel so energized." And now Kendall's texting me because she found out a piece of information yesterday and it has rocked her world. So let me find, of course, I do not have this teed up for you. You can tell this is real time because I'm like, oh my God, I did not actually prepare because this is unfolding. Oh, here she goes. Okay, I found it. So at 11:43 a.m., my daughter texts me and says, Mom, I got to call you later. I found out some tea and I'm #sad. And then I said, let me guess. Brendan has a girlfriend. That's her high school sweetheart who they've both committed to marrying each other if they're both single, still in their 30s. Is that it? Tell me the tea. I just got off a plane. She says, no, ha, 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 ha. Remember how I told you my friend wants to help me book sessions and do management stuff? Yep. And come on, you are a tease when it comes to this kind of stuff. Lay it on me. Sorry, I'm in class. Basically, it's a long story, but she now has a crush on, I'm going to make up a name because I don't want to disclose their names. She has a crush on, what name should we use, everybody? Steve. She has a crush on Steve. Steve? Do people name their kids Steve anymore? Steve. Okay. Basically, it's a long story, but she has a crush on Steve, and he has a crush on her because they've done a few sessions together because she needed help on a song she wrote for a class. And I just know that this is the universe giving me a test because the fact that she just waltzed into my life, wants to be a bigger part of my life, and she just so happens to be now developing a crush on this boy I have history with and have made really good music with, this mom is not a coincidence. But I'll admit, I did have a big ugly cry last night because she's fucking gorgeous and they haven't even hooked up yet. And he's already telling our friend that he's crushing on this girl too. Like, bro, we hooked up for 6 months and he never said those words to. So now I just feel like he was only in it with me for the sex. Like, wow. Now, I have to give myself some props. I have been working on not trying to jump in and solve my kids' problems. This is so hard for me to do. My anxiety and my need to fix things and my need to make sure my kids are okay has me typically in this situation jump in and be like, here's what you need to do. And here, da, 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 da. But I've been working on using my own 5-second rule. Count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put yourself in pause. And then I choose a different response. And my response now is to not correct a situation, but to seek connection. And so I put myself in pause. I'm so proud of myself for this. You've got to try this with the people in your life. And instead of offering a solution, I just offered connection and said, well, that fucking sucks. I hate it when the universe does that. And then she said, like, what am I supposed to make of this, Mom? I put myself in pause. I did not offer a solution. And I said, I don't know. What do you think you're supposed to make of this? Can we just say, good job, Mel Robbins? Like, I feel like, okay, this is a huge leap in my parenting skills. She says, well, it almost feels like a test. And then I say, do you want me to tell you what I'm thinking? And she says, yes. And I said, I agree. I think it's a test about how serious you are about music. And then she says, it's also confusing because they're both so serious about music, which is why I think they're like into each other. And it's almost confronting for me in a way. And then I wrote, every relationship is a test. This one is saying, don't test me. I'm just fine on my own. Hey, wouldn't this be a great Lizzo song this moment? She says, I know, but this is just so unfortunate. I know that this is just the universe, Mom. All I have been manifesting is devotion to my work and music above all else. And clearly this is just a test of that manifesting because they are two people who want to help me make progress in my music career. And now that they could potentially get involved with one another, it's a test to try and shift my attention and question both of their roles. And if I actually want to collaborate and use them to help me with my music career. I've been trying so hard all day to have an abundant mindset. Like, good for them, honestly. How great it is that someone I want to produce and write with is also really dig someone that I want to support, that wants to support me, believe in me, and help me grow, you know? And then I said, I want you to also consider energy. She said, expand on that. I said, I will later. I think your energy is off now that this has happened, and this is not a good sign. She says, what do you mean? I said, well, it doesn't work for you to collaborate on music with someone you have weird vibes with. Now, I want to stop right there and unpack something for you. If you don't know what to do in life, always go in and pay attention to energy. When the energy shifts around people or relationships or anything that you're doing, that is always a sign about alignment. It's a sign for you to slow down when energy vibes shift and something feels off. As a human being, you are wired to be in alignment. You're wired to feel like things are in a groove. And clearly, when you find out news like our daughter did 24 hours ago, that somebody that you had been hooking up with and still have a crush on and still want to work with now has a crush on someone else, and she has a crush on them, the energy is going to shift. And it's now an opportunity for you to learn something about yourself, for you to seek better alignment, and for you to follow the energy that feels good. That's the opportunity of a moment like this, which is why I brought up energy. Let's go back to the text exchange, okay? Mom, can you expand on that? I said, well, I will later, but your energy is off, and that's not a good sign. She said, what do you mean? I said, it doesn't work for you to collaborate on music, which is something very intimate for you, with someone you have weird vibes with. Have you ever had this situation happen to you, like at work, where you kind of had a crush on somebody at work, and next thing you know, you're finding out that the person you have a crush on with is actually secretly dating somebody else at work, and now you don't feel like you want to work on projects with those two? That's an example of that energy being off. And then she says, you mean the fact that my energy has been thrown by this means that it's not a good call? But Mom, I also think that I can rise above this and be above this and let them do their thing without feeling threatened. Okay, let's stop right there. That is so true. What if you could develop the power and the self-awareness to notice in these kinds of heartbreaking and confusing situations that, boom, the energy's off. Oh my God, I'm disappointed. I'm also confronted. What if you could literally switch gears in that moment? I mean, wouldn't that be a superpower to be able to rise above that kind of thing? And then she writes this. Well, I don't want to be with him anyway. I mean, I just don't. I just don't want him to want her. Mic drop. Isn't that life right there? And of course, I had to say, you know, that's a song. I know you hate it when I say that, but when I read your texts, I feel like I'm reading lyrics. Oh, okay. Right in the middle of this, my husband's calling. Okay, let me just pick it up real quick and let's see what Chris has to say. Oh wait, I don't know what's happening. Is he still calling? Oh, here he is. Hold on. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Mel.
I'm taping a podcast. What's up?
I love you.
I love you too. Can I say something real quick? I'm talking about the situation that Kendall has with the that guy she had been hooking up with. We're calling him Steve, and her finding out that Steve has a crush on someone at school that is her good friend.
Uh-huh.
Has she talked to you about this?
This is a recent thing?
Okay, so I guess you're in the dark.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Okay.
She's been trying to call me, but I don't know if it's explicitly to tell me the story. I don't know anything about it, though.
She probably is calling you to ask for money.
I think she's all set. I can hear.
All right. Well, I'm going to hang up and keep talking to.
But you're probably right that she's not calling me for relationship advice.
She's blowing up my phone about it right now. So here's what I'm going to do. I love you too. I'm going to hang up with you. I'm going to continue talking to the folks that are listening right now on the podcast. Do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hey, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Robbins. There he is. Yay. Okay, well, you have a great day. I'll call you later because I'm about to lose my train of thought. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so back to the podcast. That was Christopher Robbins. Isn't he cute? Okay, I think that's it. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to try to get Kendall Robbins on the phone. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get her on the phone. I have no idea how this is going to go. One thing I need you to know about this is that this is not staged and that I am going to try to bring you into my life. But here's one boundary I need you to know as we start to do this on this show. We will never air something that features my kids or text messages or a friend or my husband without them listening to the episode and giving us the okay. I put that boundary in place because I want us to be able to record in a way that is spontaneous and authentic and live, but and in that environment, allow people to speak freely, but also to have people know that they're safe to speak freely because nothing will air that they're uncomfortable with. So it's important for me to tell you that so that you understand the steps that I'm taking to both share my life and keep this real and raw and authentic and relatable and deeply personal, and also not exploit people or make them feel unsafe. Okay, so let's see if we can get Kendall Robbins on the phone. She does not know that we are calling her. Here we go. For those of you watching on YouTube right now, I just want to tell you something. We taped what you're about to hear and watch yesterday, and the whole thing went down live. But when I opened yesterday, I was all discombobulated. And so I'm in a different outfit than what you're about to see. And frankly, I don't even know how we're going to end this thing, so I might be in a different outfit when you're watching this on YouTube. And that's one of the things why it's important to subscribe to YouTube, because we do release audio versions of the podcast and the unabridged, behind the scenes, anything goes, crazy ass stuff, longer form is always released on the same day on YouTube. So you're going to want to listen to both, okay? Anyway, that's it. So let's cut to us trying to get to Kendall. Here we go.
Hi, this is Dr. Schneeberger, Kendall's grandfather. If your boy, hang up. Otherwise, leave a message.
At the tone, please record your message.
She has had that voicemail message that my dad recorded for her since she was in 9th grade. I got to give her props for having the same outgoing message that your grandfather recorded. I mean, for 8 years. Come on now. If you can roll with that through high school and college, you can roll through somebody crushing on your ex-crush. That's all I'm saying. And you can also get the message in all of this mess of your life that what is hurting you is probably not meant for you. That it's time that you align your life with a new direction that energizes you and people that you're in a groove with. It's really that simple. People come and go in your life, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to be stung when they exit. Because when that door slams, sometimes your finger can get caught in it. You know what I'm saying? So let's see if she calls us back. She's in class. She just texted me, Mom, I'm in class. What's your problem? She'll find out what my problem is when she calls back. And hopefully we'll be able to air it. You answer it. Just hit. Kendall? Oh. Kendall?
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So I thank you for calling me back after class. I wanted to talk to you about the texts that we were exchanging today because it reminded. What are you doing?
I'm eating a chocolate bar, Mom. Like, sorry, I don't have a fucking podcast mic on me right now. Okay, I'm ready. Go.
America will wait. No, the globe will, because we have listeners and fans around the world hanging on your every word and the crumbs coming out of that chocolate bar.
They're good crumbs.
Are you like inside? Can you go outside where maybe we can hear you?
I am outside.
Can you move away from those annoying people sitting next to you?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Talk to me.
Okay.
While I'm moving.
Talk to you while I'm moving. Okay. So I got your text today, and I shared the gist of it with everybody. And after sharing the gist of it with everybody, I thought, wow, it reminded me of a moment when I was going through a really hard time, and there was a bunch of things in my life that were not working the way I'd hoped they would. And you gave me some of the best advice I have ever received. Do you remember what it was?
I do.
What was it?
Well, I told you that the reason that you were experiencing that, whatever you were experiencing, which was not a pleasant experience, was so you could get back in touch with what the people you're trying to inspire are struggling with every day, because you're a very lucky person. You worked very hard for the life that you have, but I think you, on a day-to-day basis, don't really struggle the way that the people you inspire do. And I told you that the reason that you were having all of these issues was because you needed to be reminded of how they feel and how you had once felt.
And if we go a level deeper and more profound on the advice,
okay,
what force was actually giving me those lessons?
What was?
What force? Because in your advice, there's a presumption about something bigger and more profound. So talk about that.
The universe. Well, should I talk more descriptive of my own personal experience?
Well, when you gave me that advice, because it's easy to give advice, right? Because you're not emotionally attached to the situation.
Yeah.
And so when you gave me that advice, that the reason why these things were happening in my life that were hard and challenging and causing me a lot of pain and causing me to question people around me and what was happening, you basically said that, Mom, your biggest mission in life is to help people. That's how you started. And because of your success, you have gotten far away from what it feels like to wake up every day and feel this level of struggle. That there was something in this challenge tied to my purpose, and that a greater spiritual force and energy was behind this if I was willing to look at the challenge that way.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also like has a lot to do with like growth and like comfort and like wanting to, I don't know, because I think like you and me are both inspired by and want to create things that require us to grow and to challenge ourselves every day. And it's so easy to just stay in like a comfortable place, to stay in all the habits that you have, to never do shit that scares you, or never interact with people or things or relationships that make you look in the mirror, make you feel insecure, or make you scared, or make you angry, or whatever it is. And I think that that like challenge tide that you experienced was like I don't know. I think for me right now, I'm sort of in this place where I'm going through a teeny little fucking challenge tide that's like basically a fucking tide pool. Like, it's not a tsunami.
Yeah.
Yours was, mine was not. But I think I'm going through this challenge tide, and I'm trying so hard because I want to maintain feeling aligned, and because I want to embrace growth and not let this derail me, that I'm like trying so hard to stay in like a mindset where I look at it as like an opportunity instead of like something that's been something like I'm being damned, I'm being wronged. Like, it's more of like, okay, you know what? Thank you. This is some sort of message.
What is the message? So, because let's go back to this part where you get the news that somebody that you are a new friend with is now crushing on somebody you used to crush with. And
and this new friend has come into my life and asked if they can pour into me basically professionally, which is like an absolute godsend. And then I find out like a few days later that it's like there's some entanglement between someone that I used to feel something for, and now they might feel something for them, but I still want to utilize this new friend. I'm just playing chess. Maybe I'm playing checkers. I don't know. I don't really know how to play
What's
either
the
one.
difference? I don't either. Well, I think I know how to play checkers, but
I'm probably playing checkers, let's be honest.
Well, I think that you're at a crossroads.
But what my point is that it would be so easy for me to just drop a fucking bomb on this really cool person and this really cool opportunity I have with not only the ex, but the new person who's going to help me, and the ex who, by the way, I also deeply, deeply respect and care about and know in my heart that I'm not supposed to be with and I'm not supposed to have a relationship to. But I think now that he and her are now entangled, it's making me go, wait, I kind of want him to be entangled with me again, which is not what I want. It's just this is my like fear of rejection coming up and my ego coming up. But back to my point is like, it would be so easy for me to just fucking derail this whole thing because I'm insecure and I'm suddenly feeling like I'm in a place of resistance. And
Stop
it would be
right there.
harder
Stop
for
right
me.
there. Can I just ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to me what exactly you would do to derail this situation? What would the old, sneaky, nasty you do?
Well, I would probably just find ways to, like, I would probably start to avoid her. I would probably like pull the plug, not pull the plug, but like sort of just pump the brakes on this like relationship that I'm cultivating, and this relationship that I'm like actively pouring more time into. I would probably pump the brakes on that.
Would you then like pull the string again on the person you used to be interested in?
Would I what on him?
Would you stoke the flame on the person you used to be interested in again?
That would be like level 0, Kendall, because I'm not really somebody that does that after a breakup. But maybe I might. I'm more of like a cold shoulder person. Like, you don't exist, I don't exist, which is not really a great tactic.
Is that like a level 2?
No, I mean, I think what I would do is I would pump the brakes on her, and every time I was around him, I'd shut down. I would not collaborate with him. I would not collaborate with her, and I would just feel myself in a place of resistance, in a place of shut down, in a place of like I would just go to a really horrible, like detrimental, negative self-talk place that probably wouldn't be lifted for a while.
You're basically describing
and like listen,
like in my teens and 20s and sometimes my 30s, but go ahead, and sometimes my 40s. But
well, what I was gonna say is like when I found out about this. Which
How did you find
happened
out?
That's not important. I found out. And when I found out about this, which happened quite literally yesterday, all of last night and like slivers of today, I felt myself in that place, like not really acting out from that place, but like in that mindset of like looking in the mirror and being like, wow, I'm fucking ugly, or being like, ooh, she's so much better than me. No wonder he wants her. Like, there's no way I can collaborate her because of this. There's no way that he's ever going to want to collaborate with me. Like, things are going to be awkward, just like over and over and over and over and over. And then like I had to remind myself, like, we're not doing that. We're not going to like live there. We're not going to be in that mindset, like yada, yada, yada. But like, it's pretty much day one. And I'm like already having to sort of like train myself to like not go there.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because I think this is so incredibly relatable. And what I visualize when I think about you standing on a street corner and having the thought cross your mind, or seeing them talking, or having a text show up from one of them, because y'all are kind of collaborating in a professional sense.
Yeah.
That you now literally find yourself at an emotional and mental crossroad. The text or seeing them or a song coming on triggers you to be at the crossroad, and the Kendall 0 goes down the left-hand road and has negative thoughts that basically beat the hell out of you and tell you a story. See, more evidence. See this. And the Kendall, what number are we going to assign this?
Fucking 100.
Okay, Kendall fucking 100. Who then looks at the other fork, which is a fork that's aligned with what you actually want, with who you're becoming, with energy that is in a groove that matches with you. And that's a whole new way of thinking and being for you.
Yeah.
What's this been like? And since you're actively in this, how would you describe what people need to do who are in this situation? They're literally just found out that their ex is going on a date with their friend. They just found out that the dream job that they got, or the dream school that they wanted to be in, went to somebody else. And there's this moment where the way you thought things were going to go just don't happen. And you feel the sting that you're talking about. And it just causes you to start telling yourself a very old story. It's never going to work out for you. This always happens to me. Nobody's going to love me. When is it going to be my turn? All that crap. How does somebody in that moment actually visualize a fork in the road, start to catch that negativity, and redirect themselves in a new direction?
Okay. Well, one second. I'm just getting on my bike.
Okay. Do we have to ride while we're giving the world advice,
Mom,
here?
I think that you forget that I'm a student and I'm living my life. So give me a second. This is good. You can cut this out. Like, relax. Jesus. What I was going to, I'm sort of just going to start talking, and I might contradict myself, and I might go back on what I'm saying, but I guess that's part of this whole thing. But, yeah, I'm driving up to Thornton and potential encounter about to happen.
That would be amazing. I'm going to manifest that right now. Dear God, come on, bring him in. Bring him in. I would like to see the two of them walk around the corner as you're talking to us.
No, they're not.
If they did, where would you feel it?
I would be like, damn it, that blows. But then I would tell myself, like, I think what I tell myself is I'm like, well, I think that it helps for me. It helps to know that, like, in my certain situation, like, I've already like done it and I've already tried it and it didn't work. And I know in my heart, like, I think what you need to do in these kinds of situations is just like remember what you know to be true, like in your heart. Like if it's your dream school and you didn't get in then and your best friend did, like, just believe in the fact that it's still your dream school and it's going to happen. It just might not be right now. And I think for me, what I'm telling myself is like, I don't want that relationship. I don't want to be in that relationship. And I know that in my heart. And like, instead of torturing myself and going back to like my old ways of thinking and trying to tell myself that I do want it just so I can have some sort of stupid validation, I'm going to tell myself that like, he's still here. He's still talking to one of my good friends now, maybe for a reason. And instead of seeing this as like a detriment to my life, like, why don't I just flip the fucking script and like benefit from it? Like, how cool would it be if two people who I know care about me, who respect me deeply, and who both want to pour into me creatively and professionally, how fucking amazing would it be if they both fucking love each other and are vibing and are awesome? And how great is it, and how good and great does it feel to visualize like them hitting it off and them crushing on each other and them being awesome and great and just like an explosion of love and light. And I just get to experience that and I get to be around that and I get to benefit from that. And like, I think
I don't think you were that into him if you're this transformed 24 hours later. I'm just going to put it out there. Like, this sounds like a highly evolved human being.
No, it is. And I also I think that like a non-aligned human would probably listen to me talk and be like, well, that's fucking selfish. Like,
because I'll tell you what you just said there was exactly the point of this, which is,
I was going to say, it's all about healthy selfishness in this situation. Like, I know in my heart that like what I want is not that. And so instead, let me just surrender to the reality of what it is and then flip the script and be like, how can I have fun? How can I make this fun for me? How can I use this to benefit me? Like, how can I like look at this in a way that's like not going to make me feel like shit?
I think that's amazing. And since you're on a roll, can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
The fact that you've processed this in less than 24 hours and you're already love and light and alignment, to me says you weren't that into him anyway, and these are old wounds that you're working on around rejection.
Or it says that I was, and I'm mature as shit, and I'm on my spiritual awakening journey, and I'm aligned.
That you can.
How about that?
I think that's freaking hot. That's
no, like, fuck though, you weren't that into him. Like, no, I really was, but I'm more into myself, and I'm on my fucking journey, and what of it?
Oh my God. Okay, so I just got something from this, and now my armpits are sweating because it's such a good idea. You ready?
Sure.
You were able to hyper process this because you are very clear about who you are and what it feels like when you're in the groove with energy and people and where you put your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very clear when you are in alignment with your energy, with your focus, with who you surround yourself with, when something enters the space that's off. You feel friction. Yes. You don't feel like yourself. You feel yourself reaching for old toxic behaviors.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And that's why you were able to process this so quickly and hold space for the fact, I still like the guy. And I still want to work with her and him.
And him.
I got to figure this out, because what the universe is actually teaching you, Ken, is it's teaching you how to stay laser focused on your higher objective instead of getting sucked into the toxic bullshit that Kendall Zero used to get sucked into.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that.
Yeah, that feels very like clear and like makes sense to me. Because it's like, I don't want to lose them. I don't want to like what I was saying about the whole derailing thing is like, it would be so easy for me to just like derail. Okay, not working with you. I'm going to go cry about it. I'm going to listen to fucking sad music and blah, 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 and miss this crazy good opportunity. Or I could win from this. Like, it's just the mindset of being like, I can win from any situation. Okay, well, that's a little provincial, but
actually,
I think it's a good mindset to have. Like, any situation that you are in, whether or not you put yourself there, if you did, if you didn't, if it was placed upon you, like, you can still win. And like, it's just about like figuring out that higher objective and figuring out how you can feel aligned in that space that initially felt pretty negative.
One final thought. If we were to roll the clock back 2.5 years when you went through something way more painful that took a lot longer to process.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Do you have any insight to offer for somebody who's in that space, who thinks what you're saying right now sounds absolutely fantastical and completely not realistic?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's, give me a second on that one. Not like a day, like give me actually 5 seconds.
Can I offer something?
Sure.
What if you take your mindset of, I could win in this, that there are certain upsets along the way that take longer to process?
Okay, I have it.
Go.
I was just going to say that, like, everybody always says, like, you can't love anyone until you love yourself. But I feel like that, like, the word choice in that isn't correct, because I feel like if I had known at that point 2 years ago when I was going through a much more painful and drawn out and confusing, entangled breakup, like, I had I didn't really believe that, like, I didn't believe in myself. Like, at that point in time, I wasn't like, I was put on this earth to do something bigger. Like, I didn't, like, actually believe with my whole heart that, like, I was put on this earth to live an incredible life and that I had the power to do so. And, like, I think that's where a lot of people's issues are, is that, like, they don't think that they're worth it. They don't think that they can actually achieve their dreams. They don't have dreams. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, at that point in time, I had ideas of what I thought my dreams were, but they weren't real. And I didn't actually believe, like, I'm going to be doing something bigger than this. Like, this is just like a piece to the puzzle. It's not the puzzle itself. And I feel like right now I can actually taste, like, the bigger things that are going to be happening for me. And, like, I can feel that, like, and because I can taste it, I know that this small challenge tide is just a test, you know, and it's not the whole thing. And it's, I can easily compartmentalize it because I can taste the bigger picture, but, like, I had to do a lot of fucking taste testings before that. You know what I mean? Like, go to the winery, babe.
I love that. And I would add one more thing. You're
Okay.
able to process this entanglement in hyper freaking Star Wars, like, whatever speed. Like, I just see hyper speed.
Okay.
Because of everything that you allowed yourself to feel and learn and process and mourn and discover about yourself in that painful year of breaking up. Just like I am able to feel a level of contentment and happiness that I've never experienced in my life now that I'm 53 because of the protracted, painful, awful, horrible 2 years of heartbreak that you had a front row seat to.
Yeah.
And I think the breakthrough that you receive in life is in direct reverse proportion to how painful the experience was. And when you get any,
but I don't think that is widespread, and that isn't, like, a way to seek
I don't recommend you smash into a wall to learn a lesson. I'm saying life does that to you. And if you are able to process the hard stuff as a lesson, one of the benefits is the second the future you gets within an inch of anything that feels familiar to that old pain, you have an opportunity to go, I'm at that crossroad. I see the old me. I could spend a year doing this bullshit where I suck my thumb in the corner and I play small and I pretend my life is over and I hate every other woman because they're prettier. Or I know that road. Or you actually put yourself in park and say, wait a minute. I learned something from that. And what I learned is I'm not fucking doing that again to myself. I'm going to.
And I also think that for this example, especially with this like girl and this guy, like I think like even yesterday and today I felt a little bit of like, oh, well maybe like maybe that road that they're on is like the wrong one. Like maybe I'm like, oh, well maybe I should, like I'm like visualizing a lot of like going left and going right, and like for some reason the right is always like the right road to go down. I mean, I don't think that was a coincidence in my brain, but what I'm saying is like yesterday I was like, you know what, maybe like collaborating with both of these people is not is going to the left. It's not going to the right. And like, I shouldn't be collaborating with them. Like, this is not a good idea. But then I was like, no, because if I wasn't collaborating with them, then I would actually be going to the left, because I would be like in resistance and I would be in pain and I would be comparing myself to every other woman on the face of the fucking earth. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
Consider that you don't do that and then see which road you're on.
Amazing. Hold that thought. I just want to ask Andrea and Maddie and Jesse, do you have any question you want me to ask Kendall? No? Maddie, you got one? Maddie was crying.
I was crying because what you said. No, well, what you said is exactly what I've been going through, like literally right now. And what I went through, like, I think almost 3.5 years ago, when I went through like a really prolonged, drawn out breakup where I felt like I wasn't good enough to be in the relationship and I wasn't enough to be enough for, you know, what he wanted, when that wasn't the case. And it's taken me a really long time to get to the other side of it. And I think that what you said is so, and I'm still probably like not close to, I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there. You know what I mean? Like it just takes time. And I wonder, maybe like, I like the question of like, what would you tell your past self, but like not even what could you take away? It's just like, if you could place yourself in a space in this moment where you feel the exact same way that you felt at that time, like you know that you would make a different decision, right?
Yeah. I think honestly, like if I was in that like really hard, like cyclical bad pattern, what I would do is just like every day do like a little something that scared me, or do like every time that I felt like just that like shit mindset I was going back to, like every time I felt myself going back to it, like just toy with the idea or like welcome the idea of doing the other thing. You know what I mean? Because that's just like sort of building the muscle, like strengthening the muscle of like going to the right instead of the left. Like, because for me in that really long breakup, it was like I was in the same place. Like, I'm not good enough for him. Like, I'm never going to be good enough for him. And now I've gotten to a point where I'm like, it is a fucking gift that I was even with him. And it is a gift that it didn't work out. And like, it had nothing to do with me not being good enough to him. It was just like, he was a part of my journey and like, he served his purpose. And I knew all along it wasn't supposed to be like a lifetime. But I think I resisted going to the right for so long, like to the point where literally like there was a fucking roadblock, like the road fell apart, the left road fell apart. And it was like, I don't have a choice. You know what I mean? And so I think what my piece of advice would be is to like practice just like turning right a little bit here and there every day. Just go to the right. Oh, I normally would do this, but let me just try doing that. Or I normally would think this, but let me just try thinking that. And I honestly think that like that will help you strengthen the muscle, because the amount of resistance I was in for so long going to the left, going to the left, going to the left, when the universe was like, go to the fucking right, was just like a waste of time. And now I know that, like, if I just practiced trying to do the other thing, think the other way, like, it would have been so much easier for me to see, like, the strung along pattern that had been being created for me all along.
Well, I think it's interesting, like, the fact that you say go to the left and go to the right, because I think that you can take that in so many different directions. Like, something that my dad has always told me is, like, always, like, choose yourself first. And I've never done this, right? Like, I always put others in front of myself, and, like, I always put others' feelings and others' situations and how other people, you know, react to what I do before what I think about my actions. And so I think it's interesting because turning left, to me, when you said it, I was like, that feels like choosing everybody else, and turning right feels like choosing me.
Yes, 100%. It's like you always know what, like, you should be doing for you, but it's like scarier to do that, or you don't want to do that because it might fuck up what's going on with everyone else. But the second you start putting you first, it's just like a trickle down effect. Like, you start attracting more shit to just start happening for you, and it's incredible.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I recently started doing those kinds of things, and I literally see a shift in my behavior and how other people, like, react to my behavior. Like, the confidence that I have based on choices that I've made in the last 6 months alone has been completely different than the confidence I had even a year ago, that, like, I can make decisions now today that I know I couldn't have made a year ago. And it's because of choices of, like, turning right and choosing me instead of doing things for other people and doing things for the benefit of other people instead of doing them for the benefit of me.
Yeah.
Good on you, man. Good
okay,
on you.
Mom, I'm literally, class starts in 1 minute, so I do have to leave. But I love you very much. And let's talk after class.
I love you. I'm proud of you, actually. I'm proud of the person you're becoming and your ability to share everything that you're learning through all of it with all of us. I'm
proud of me, too. Like, I've come a long fucking way. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's like laughable, but I'm like just happy, and I'm like grateful that I can like be this mindful about myself, and like I'm finally like manifesting and attracting and like doing things that I've always like wished I could, you know?
I love it. Well, we'll keep sharing and unpacking it so everybody else can learn along the way too. Have a great class.
Yeah, we will. All right, I love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.